Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the on-track series video for the American Tier 10 medium tank, the M48a5 Patton. If you don't know what the on-track series video is, it's basically where we play through tiers 5 to 10 in any given line, and we show off what the tanks are like, what sort of crew skills we have on them, what equipment we run on them, etc. And generally nowadays I'm focusing on the tank lines that have been reforged, because there's no point making a big video about a tank and then getting reforged about a month later. So the M48a5 line was actually reforged relatively recently, and the M48 Patton didn't get any changes, but a couple of the tanks in the line did. And as always, we're going to start off with the tier 5, and we're in the M4 Sherman. The good old M4 Dirtman. The reason I actually truly started paying attention and trying to play this game, I saw that the M4 Sherman was in the tech tree when I was first looking through this game in 2014, and it was like, oh my goodness me, I've seen one of those in real life. I really want to play it. It'll be really awesome. And then played it a lot and got absolutely wrecked because it's got no armor. And I didn't truly appreciate that it had no armor and I was just a noob, so I just, drove out in front of people's big guns and just went, hey, they can't pen me. Oh, I'm dead. Yeah, that was my life in the M4 Sherman, but I do love this tank. I do have that appreciation for it. It's got this 105mm derp gun. It can be hella fun, because derp is love. Derp is life. I mean, you could use the 75mm gun, definitely, but that'd be boring. Derp all the way. So in terms of a crew on the M4 Sherman, I run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Trap Mechanic, Situational Awareness, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Camouflage Expertise, because Camouflage Expertise makes your camo a little bit better. That can be pretty decent actually at these lower tiers where there's not as much view range to go around, so if you make yourself harder to spot, you can get away with quite a lot, and that's kind of nice, even though the M4 Sherman doesn't have the best camo in the universe. Then all the gun handling perks, because you are running a derp gun, so I want to make the gun handling as good as possible, and even if you run the 75mm, the gun handling on that tank, or on that gun, sorry, is not even as good anyway. That's the crew I run on the next two tanks in the line, or the next three tanks, in fact. So, yeah, I run that crew all the way up till tier 8. In terms of equipment on the M4 Sherman, I run rammer, vents, and optics. Rammer to make the reload as good as possible, vents to make everything as good as possible, and then optics to be able to spot for myself. And that's what I run on this thing to make it as good as possible for me. So in this game, on El Haloof, not El Haloof, what am I on about? It's El Alamein, it's because it had L in there, somewhere, L. Yeah, I'm sticking with that. El Alamein, we've got the derp gun, we've been derping around. We're up to 1300 damage so far, 173 assistance. We've managed to one-shot someone so far, which is great, which is always the big love of these derp guns, right? They're so fun to play. You just see someone, you go, delete, and they're gone, just like that. But they can also pull off shots like that. How low did that shot go on that Skoda T24? Ouchies. But now we've got the 3001H in front of us. And with the 3001H, I can pen it with the 102mm pen I have on these heat rounds. So, because it presents a big flat target of that lower plate, which is really easy to pen, load the heat, go straight through his lower plate, pen him, kill him. It's one of those things, you just, with this derp gun, and with a lot of the derp guns at the tier, you just got to know what you can pen with the heat rounds and what you can pen with the HE rounds. I mean, when people like the Skoda T24 drive around sideways on in front of you, you're always going to pen them and do damage. But that's the one thing I always loved about the derp gun, it was like, take your brain out, have fun, right? You'd see a tank, just derp it. Didn't have to aim, well, you had to aim. You didn't have to aim for a weak spot, you could just derp and do damage most of the time. And it was just that sort of take your brain out, casual, no, all fun in the world, no problems, no sweat. And it can be fun like that. So now that Skoda T24's gone, there is artillery in play, and I'm thinking, you know what? Okay, there's two mediums towards our base. We have got a medium tank from their team going towards it. You know what? I'm going to have faith. Now, that's something you shouldn't do all too often. I'm going to have faith in my teammates, in that they are going to be able to hold that base. They'll be able to reset it, and by them resetting it, I'll be able to get over here, shut down the artillery so that they're not getting rained on. But unfortunately, derp guns go derp, and we ended up missing that guy. And it's like, well, you know what? I'm just going to get rid of you now. You've missed us, and we get rid of him. Really awkward moment there, because it was like, oh, yes, artillery, there you are. I will pen you and kill you in one go dead easily. Oh, I missed. Oh, this is awkward. But thankfully, that tank, especially that SPG at tier 5, it has the, I think the KV2 gun. It hits very, very hard. So thank God he missed us. We're up to 1,871 damage. The next one in the line of fire is the Deadbolt, which is a BDR chassis with... I actually don't know what its gun is. It's a BDR chassis anyway, with an STRV M42 turret and I believe a 75mm gun. But we're aiming for the engine deck. You can see it there. He hadn't got a clue we were here. With the derp gun, we could pen that engine deck. Just there, you could see where the penetration indicator was, and we slapped that shot straight in. They're still capping us, but these two heavy tanks are moving towards my medium tank. At the minute, we have time. Time is on our side. There's 1 minute and 21 seconds. We're definitely going to get back to the cap at this point. But these two are just full-on running straight towards my guy. I need to help him out and shut them down. We managed to get the kill on the OI experimental. We go for the shot onto the Churchill one. I was kind of hoping to catch his tracks and track him in place, but we do 150 odd damage, which is nice, and he gets shut down by the Panzer III-4. Now there's only one tank left. It's in the cap. We know exactly where he is. We've got so much time that we don't really have to worry about being capped out. He gets spotted up. It's the T-34, and well, I could load heat and pen the T-34 with heat. I definitely could do that, but I decided, you know what, I'm just going to stick with HE, because if I have inside on or something like that, I can definitely pen him anyway. And if it happens so like this, where he ended up getting his health whittled down, the heat could have bounced, and that would have been awkward. But we do manage to get the shot in to shut down the T-34, and we'll finish with 7 kills, 2.4k damage, the 2k base XP, with, like I said, 7 kills, the Devastator medal, Top Gun, and the high caliber. The M4 Sherman, it's a little demon fun. It's so much fun with that Dirtman that, yeah, I say, it'll always have a special place in my heart, because it was the tank that I went towards. It was the tank that I looked at and went, yeah, I really want to play that tank. Lots of people say it's the Tiger one. For me, it was the M4 Sherman, and it was just like, I need to get this tank in all its shiny glory, right? And yeah, it's a hell of a lot of fun, because it's fairly easy. If you know what you're doing, it's fairly easy to play. Its mobility is okay. Its camo's okay. It's not the best. The 75mm gun it gets is alright for tier 5. The derp gun is fun memes. Like, you can just one-shot people and you can always do damage. I mean, even if you get against tier 7s, sure, you've got to hit them, because it is a derp gun and it does like to derp. But sometimes you're always going to do damage. And it can be fun like that. And now you've got at tier 6, the M4A3E8, the Easy 8. And this little tier 6 is also absolutely fabulous. I really enjoy this tank a hell of a lot, always have, because it's basically the M4 Sherman, but taken on to the next level. You may be using the same 105mm derp gun at tier 6, which means you face tier 8s with it. But to be honest, your reload is slightly better, you're slightly more accurate, and to add to that, you can run vert stabs, which again, naturally, makes you more accurate. And yeah, I always felt like it kind of took the Sherman to the next level in the way it ran, because also the mobility is a little bit nicer as well. In terms of equipment on this tank, I do run rammer, vert stabs, and optics. Vert stabs, because obviously you want to make the gun as good as possible, so it's always going to be great to have. Rammer, like I say, because, yeah, DPM is love. It's life. It's what you need in everything. And optics, because, again, you want to be able to spot for yourself. And you do have decent camo, so being able to buff up the camo rating with the camouflage expertise skill that you saw in the previous replay, and then also having the optics to make your view range better, it means you can outspot people decently with this tank, which is alright. I do want to make a passing mention to the M4A3E2, which is the Jumbo Sherman, because that is also a possibility for this line. You can either choose the Easy 8 or the Jumbo Sherman. I think you'll be better generally going for the Easy 8, which is why it's being featured. But I do want to make a passive mention to the Jumbo Sherman, because it is an option, and it's basically a Sherman, but with armour, and it can bounce pretty decently, especially on ridge lines with its turret armour. And it can be a lot of fun to play. But unfortunately, I don't think the Jumbo is as good as the Easy 8 in a lot of scenarios. So that's why I say the Easy 8 is probably the way to go. So in terms of this game on Redshire, we're up to 948 damage with 296 assistance. We've moved up to the secondary ridge, which is what I think of it as. And it's been very aggressive so far because they haven't really pushed this side. And it's like, well, okay, if you're not going to push this side, we're going to push it, because they seem to probably have quite a few people pushing down the 9-0. And I mean, they've got this Kaiju sat at the back. You see me with the get the shot. I didn't do too much damage. And oh, the derp gun derps there. What we were aiming for was his tracks, keep him in place, hopefully keep him pinned, and we could get some consistent damage off of the Kaiju. Because weirdly with the Kaiju, and I think it's probably something to do with the spaced armor or the splash of the HE on the howitzers, but you shoot at an OI or a Kaiju and you shoot them, it's the same as the Oni by the way, if you're using these derp guns. You shoot them in the front of the turret and try and splash anywhere. You tend to do very, very little, but randomly, if you shoot them in the tracks and you shoot them and track them, you tend to seemingly do far more damage by doing that. So, like you saw with the first shot, we hit him in the turret front, we probably only splashed him for like, what, 60, 70 damage. For some reason, when you start taking the tracks off consistently with the HE, and keep hitting them in that front track, frontally on, it just seems to splash him for like 120, 130, pretty consistently. Really weird, but like I say, I think that's probably the splashing past the spaced armor. So, I was a bit worried that VZ-44-1 was going to come charging over the ridgeline and hurt me, because he's got a big gun. I don't want to mess with that. And I haven't actually got any friends left on this flank, which was a little bit awkward. So I decided, you know what, I've got to recognise the danger here. I can't stay there. He's going to come for me. I don't want to take the hit from that guy. So we end up pulling over this ridge, and actually he looks fairly stock. And yeah, it sounded like it as well. I think he's actually got the 240 Alpha gun, which means he does reload fairly quickly as well, so I've just got to bear that in mind. But we did get the auto-aimed shot over the ridgeline, which tracked him in place. And you know what, while he's getting feasted on, we're just going to try... Oh, unfortunately, he repaired it. We were going to try and keep him perma-tracked by just splashing his tracks there. But unfortunately, like I say, he used his repair kit and repaired it, so we didn't get any more assistance off of that. Kind of sad, but it is what it is. We're up to 1,561 damage with 875 assistance. And we move back into this secondary dip location. The Skoda T25 is spotted, so I'm going to try and get the shot in. That is exceptionally lucky that hit that guy. I was hoping that I'd be able to catch him in the side and pen him, and then, oh, just as our fiery dies, bad decision there. Probably should have gone for this Skoda T25 that's over there. Then we make another poor shot, and it's like, dude, get your act together. There we go, thank you very much. Straight in his side, penned him for 416, the juicy pens that we love to see. And we finally made a better option in terms of our shots there. We managed to get the shot into the setter there to shut him down. The Skoda T25 gets shut down himself. And now there's only 4 tanks left. It's kind of very close at the minute. It's currently 5-4. They've got 2 heavy tanks left, a light tank and this TD, which is the Jag Panther, which is right in front of us. And I'm looking at this Jag Panther going, I kind of want to get round his side, because I could quite possibly pen that Jag Panther in the side with the HE. Definitely if I decide to load heat and get round his side and just drop the heat in as well. There is this OI in front of us though. We're just going to keep lobbing shells at him. 121 there. I want to get rid of this guy before I even think about going for the Jag Panther. Then we end up hitting him and doing 15. That's just derp gun things. We end up not doing very much damage again. Then we take a shot in the ass, and it's like, well, that's not good. And we take another one. It's like, oh, this is awkward. Pop a shot into the tracks of the Jag Panther, so that hopefully he is not able to depress his gun into us to shut us down. And then while he's tracked, we maneuver round his gun of his tracked tank, and yeah, get round the gun and don't get shot and survive the shots from the rear, which is nice. That's one of those things with the derp gun. If you're in that sort of situation and a tank is pushing you, like the Jag Panther, a turretless TD, they can't really traverse the gun towards you that easily. If something's coming over a ridgeline like that, just aim for the tracks, because with this howitzer, you're probably pretty much nearly every time going to blow off his tracks. Pretty much every single time. So as long as they've not got the repair kit left, you're going to track him in place, do damage, because that's just what HE does, pin him in place, and they're not going to be able to shoot at you. So that's what you want to be aiming at, really, with these derp guns. So now there's 2 tanks left on the enemy team. Still kind of close. It's 4-2. We have a guy in the cap. They have a guy in the cap. Our guy got in there first, I think. And yeah, he did. And that means that currently we're winning. And also, currently, I am getting close towards this 1375. And I'm looking at this 1375 plate saying, please, you're capping, dude. Don't push out in front of my allies so I can shoot you. But unfortunately, he randomly pulls out around the side of the building and ends up getting shot by my friend, which means that I don't get any damage from making it all the way over here. QQQ. And unfortunately, the KV-3 also gets shut down by the IS, so that's all we managed to get in the AZ-8. But it's still a pretty damn nice game for the tank. Finished with 3 kills, 2.9k damage, 1400 assistance, ace tanker, the Confederate, the high caliber, 2005 base XP. A really nice game for the EZ-8. EZ-8 is an absolute little fun tank. It's fun to derp around with. The derp is a little less effective at tier 6 than it is at tier 5 with the M4, but you can still have a lot of fun with it. You can pull off some great memes, you can get some great pens, and there's still a lot of tanks at tier 5, and 6, 7, and some at tier 8 as well that you can pen with the derp gun, which can be a lot of fun. So now we're on to the third replay. In this third replay, we're on to the T20, the tier 7. And the T20 is another tank that is fairly solid, especially after it got a little bit of love. Because it actually got buffed in the Reforge. This is the first of 3 tanks that got buffed in this line. And in terms of buffs, it got some basically stock gun changes, which is nice. It got the 90mm gun, which is the top gun, buffed to .36 accuracy, which makes the accuracy just that little bit nicer with it. And they also buffed the dispersion during movement and dispersion during the turret rotation from 0.2 to 0.16, which really helps this gun out from moving, because beforehand it did bloom a lot when you were moving around, and this gun could feel exceptionally derpy. But with those changes, it's made it a lot nicer to play, just a little bit more friendly. And the thing that this tank has that is a big strength is the fact that its camo is really great. And it's got pretty damn good alpha for tier 7 medium tanks. I mean, there's a lot of tier 7 mediums that are pushing, what, 180, less than that, maybe 150. A lot of them are less than the 200 alpha mark, which it means that this tank has that sort of hard-hitting gun going for it. Reload's pretty decent. It's not horrific, but it's not great. The mobility on the tank is actually pretty good as well. Helps you to get to places pretty easily. And like I say, the camo on it is also just, it's actually really dirty. You could, if you wanted to, play this tank like a scout, go find a bush, set up and spot for your team if you really wanted to. That is one of the ways you could do it. And yeah, it's really some decent buffs for this tank. Just making the gun a little bit more accurate was definitely nice. Like I say, it could just be extremely troll, and it was always annoying to play for that. And yeah, it could just be a little bit frustrating because you felt like the gun should be a little bit better than it actually was. You have 160 pen on the AP as well, which is okay. It's not that great, but you've got like 243 pen on the APCR, which is just dirty. It's really, really dirty. It means that you're going to be able to pen everything you're ever going to face in the T20, so you don't have to really worry about your penetration that much, because like 160 is enough to go through everything from tier 6 to 8. Well, near enough most things from tier 6 to 8. And then when you're talking about 8 and 9, sort of more heavy tanks, you can just load the APCR and you're going to easily pen them. So this game in the T20, we're on Himmelsdorf. We are exceptionally top tier. I'm going to point that out. It is exceptionally top tier, but it shows what this gun can do and the sort of punch you can have when you've got decent matchups. And the fact is, even when you haven't got a decent matchup and you're facing tiers 8 and 9, you're still hitting people for 240. You're not like a Comet, for instance, that only hits for 135 and it feels like you're only cutting them. You're actually doing a pretty decent amount of damage. So we end up getting the shot into the Tiger P's drive wheel. It was the first thing we aimed for because I knew I could pen it and then track it. And unfortunately, just as we get the shot into his drive wheel again, he ends up repairing it, which means sort of the shot for his low plate was a little bit, well, it felt a little bit wasted. But we managed to keep the shots flowing into this guy's lower plate. We go for the side shot though, because on his turret, because it's just a little bit easier. They are capping, but I'm pretty confident that if I had to push back, I could definitely get back there and reset. The Tiger P is gone, and now it's a Black Prince. And the Black Prince, I can pen the Black Prince's lower plate a little bit. It's pretty much a 50-50 with AP. you're always probably better off when you're facing something like the Black Prince, just loading premium rounds so that you can guarantee to go through the lower plate. But like I say, we seem to be going through with the AP pretty decently there, and he managed to get shut down. We unfortunately didn't quite get the kill, but we did get most of the damage on that guy. We're up to 3.9k damage, and there's actually only one tank left. It's this A43 Black Prince, the tier 6 premium version of the Black Prince. He's on the banana road, but unfortunately he's just pulled behind a building, which is just safe from us. I don't think he's even realised that he was safe from us, but fortunately enough, he actually drove backwards, giving us a nice shot into his anus, which is great. And now he's just powering toward... powering's maybe the wrong word for the A43 Black Prince, but he's getting there. Into the VK3601H, and unfortunately that's all she wrote. But we did manage to have a pretty stonking little game. Finished with the victory, 1 kill, 4.1k damage, 250 assistance, the ace tanker, Confederate, sniper, high caliber, 1691 base XP. A pretty good game for the T20, like I say, pretty damn high top tier there. But it's Himmelsdorf as well. Himmelsdorf isn't the best map for that tank, but it is what it is. T20 is fairly solid. If you get a good map for camo, you're going to have a good time with it as well. So we're on to tier 8, and we're on to the Pershing, which is actually one of my more favourite tanks. It's really quite fun to play, and a lot of the buffs have made it exceptionally good tank. And you can be really Mr. Consistent with this thing. So in terms of the buffs, this tank had some progression system changes, so like guns removed and stuff like that. They buffed the mantlet armor on the turret for turret 1, which was quite nice. It means the stock turret isn't that bad. The 90mm, the top 90mm gun also got a reload buff from 7.9 to 7.6. And it also got the terrain resistances on this tank, which were abnormally high for a tier 8 medium, buffed up quite significantly as well, which means that this tank now glides to its top speed pretty damn easily. Whereas before I used to run off-road driving to make sure that the terrain resistances weren't that bad for it. Doesn't need it anymore, and I've run camo just to make the tank just a little bit more stealthy so I can try and, you know, stay undetected for as long as possible. And yeah, the buffs to this top gun that I'm using here mean that, well, I'm going to start using it, and it's absolutely fantastic because you've got 221 pen on the standard AP, 260 some, I think it's 268 pen on the APCR, which is incredible, which means your penetration, you're never going to have any worries. Beforehand, I used to use the second 90mm gun, which had an incredible reload, but it only had 190 pen and 260 something penetration on its premium APCR as well. But I used it because the DPM was insane. But now they've buffed the DPM a little bit on this one. The reload is still very, very quick. And now you don't have to worry about the fact that you're more... Well, because the other problem with that other gun is the fact that it's got really good DPM for less pen, and it's also less accurate. Whereas this gun is actually really accurate. Fires at 5.7 seconds for 240, which is solid at tier 8. And yeah, you've got the penetration to never have to worry as well. And you can just keep farming, farming, farming. Also, the turret armor on this tank got buffed a little while ago as well, which means that you can actually bounce your own tier on a ridgeline. I will say your own tier, because if you're facing tanks that have about, I want to say about 190 to 200 pen, you can actually bounce them on your turret, which is really nice. So that's where this position that we're using on Sand River comes into play. We are hull down for the most part, as long as these guys don't keep pushing. We're up to 3.2k damage, 1800 assistance, and we're less than 3 minutes into the game. We're on for a big one here, and they are just giving us free targets. We are farming like mad. So we'll pull up on the ridgeline to try and get a shot into this T28 and V744-1. The T28 is in a really strong position. We're not going to be able to find that guy's cupola, but we can shoot his lower plate. We can't pen the lower plate with standard rounds, but with premium, straight through the lower plate, because we've got nearly 270 pen. He's angled in a weird way, which means we can shoot it at its weakest point. So we are doing some pretty significant damage to him. I was looking at getting a shot into the VZ44, but I decided, you know what? Yeah, the VZ44's got a pretty hard-hitting gun, but the T28 is a bigger target. He is the one that has the 120mm. That gun hurts a lot. I want to get rid of that guy's gun. Plus, he's also more awkward to pen. So we want to get rid of that guy. But now he's moved back into a position where I could probably get a shot into his cupola, This is also where I say where the premium rounds are fantastic, because we managed to destroy that guy completely. He is supposed to rely on his armour, but well, unfortunately for the T28, it doesn't really have any armour at all anyway. It just gets wrecked. And we managed to completely trash that guy. Now the VZ44-1's gone, we can start working on all these guys in front of us here. So now their Pershing decides to come up over this little ridge. We get a nice shot snapped into his driver, which tracked him in place a little bit. They've also got these two guys that we spotted up here. We get a nice shot into the Tiger 2 side turret. There's also the 3002D that we can just about see, so we're just going to launch some shots into him. Now this is where this top gun is probably the one that I'd probably more say to use now, because you can snap shots a lot more effectively with this gun than you ever could the other 90mm that has the incredible DPM. Because the other gun has like nearly 5, I think it is like literally a 5-second reload, which is insane. But the penetration, especially against tier 10s and 9s, can let you down a lot, as well as the bad well, the worst accuracy, I should say. So yeah, you can play about with it. In terms of equipment on the Pershing, I actually run rammer, vert stabs and optics, same as I did on the T20 and the Easy 8. Make the gun as good as possible, make the DPM as good as possible, and like I say, be able to spot for myself is also a great thing. So we're just seeing the Scorpion G. I could have pushed over to get another shot into the T26E5, but I've decided, you know what, I don't want the Scorpion G to randomly turn around and go, you know what, I want to put some big shots into you. So we managed to well, we get the shot into the Scorpion G. Then we've come over, the T26E5 got shut down. We've surprised the Pershing, managed to get some shots into his rear, and he manages to get shut down by us, which is great. And we have had what is a humongous game for a tier 8. 7.3k damage and 4.7k assistance. Because that position we were in was really good for a hull down tank, because we could stay hull down, just show our turret, and keep working them over and over and over again as they went across the A line. And we were also spotting everybody that was in that A line position or along the C line, which meant that everybody that was camping at the back at A2 had free reign of shots at them. And we managed to push our numbers up to nearly 12k combined for a tier 8 tank, which is utterly insane. Absolutely fantastic game for the Pershing. Showed off what it can do when you can get into a good farming position. Finished with 5 kills, 7.3k damage, 4.7k assistance nearly. Ace tanker, high caliber, steel wall, Confederate, and 3019 base XP. 3k base XP. Mad game in the Pershing there. Like I say, it's one of those tanks that I always really enjoyed. I always clicked with the Pershing. It was actually my first tier 8 medium tank, and it's just a fantastic tank, especially after all the buffs it's got. It means that it's just got that little bit extra to it. It can bounce its own tier on its turret pretty decently, although like I say, you've got to keep bobbing up and down on a ridgeline to make the most of its armor. Don't just sit in front of them thinking you're impervious. The gun handling on it's fantastic now. The DPM on it's solid. The penetration on it's great. Its mobility, now the ground resistances have been changed on it, oh great. It's a solid tank. And now you're on to the tier 9, which is the M46 Patton. A tank that is still, after it's been nerfed and changed, a great tank. It's still very, very solid. So yeah, I said it has been nerfed. What did they change? Well, on the tank, they changed the stock gun reload times and made the stock guns a lot better. And on the top gun, they nerfed its reload. They actually nerfed this tank from 9 seconds up to 10. Now, this tank probably needed it because it was an absolutely fantastic tank. It was pretty much a tier 10, near enough, because its DPM was insane, its turret armor was troll, mobility was decent, and after they buffed its gun last time, because what they did is they buffed the gun from like 218 pen and 268 premium pen to 268 APCR pen with 330 or 340 heat pen. And the shot velocity on the APCR is obviously like 1400. It's incredible. So they made this tank have incredible DPM, incredible gun handling. That's the other thing. They made the gun handling slightly better as well. It had fantastic gun handling, fantastic DPM, fantastic shell velocity, decent mobility, and good camo, as well as a troll turret. And this tank was basically near enough for tier 10, but at tier 9. So DPM being the only thing that got nerfed and making it so it's a little bit nicer in terms of its progression up the old grind was probably warranted for the tank, to be honest. I don't know. I think it probably was. I don't know what you guys think about that, but yeah, it probably was a little bit justified when it was like reloading 2.5 seconds faster than pretty much most of the tier 9 mediums. So in terms of a crew, I run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Track Mechanic, and Rapid Aim. Now I run this crew on the M48a5 Patton as well, and I make it so that the turret traverse is just that little bit better, and then make it so the gun is still as good as possible with all the gun perks. Swap out from camo here, because the M46 Patton still does have decent camo, but the M48 Patton doesn't have any good camo. So I just make it so that the turret traverse is that little bit quicker, because the turret traverse is just a little bit slow at times. So we're on the Pilsen, and we've pushed very aggressively down the 9-0 because their team hasn't really pushed it. We're up to 4k damage, and we've managed to get some nice HE shells into this Balsig. Unfortunately, the shell on the M4, not the M48, the Waffle Panzer IV didn't pen, but it is what it is. We reload the APCR now that that Balsig's gone so that we can pen this SU-122-54. Unfortunately, guns like the SU-122-54 and the Rheinmetall Balsig are pretty much going to pen this turret because they have high pen, especially if they decide to load premium, which I think the Balsig had. 300 pen, they are going to go through this turret. This turret is best when it's using its max gun depression and you're wiggling up and down on a ridgeline because it's got some really funky angles on the turret which can bounce stuff. It's also pretty strong in terms of its turret armour as well. So, yeah, just bear that in mind. That don't sit in front of things thinking you're impervious, but just keep bobbing up and down on ridgelines, make it as hard as possible, and you're probably going to be able to ricochet things. It's not like a CDC, for instance, where it's just pure paper and always going to get penned every time. Or like the T20 at tier 7 to be more American medium tank case. So, we're up to 4.8k damage. I'm just being wary because there is the SU-122-54 on the side somewhere. But we pull around the corner, try and get a shot into the Bellerophon there, the Centurion 5-1. And unfortunately we end up missing that shot there. The gun just derped out. But we do get a nice shot into his side. And you can see because there's the Waffle Panzer IV down there too. I'm just being careful. Because that Waffle Panzer IV could have poked out around the side and put some shots into us. And yeah, we definitely didn't want that. We pull around the corner, and I actually end up doing something which sometimes happens for me, which is really frustrating when I do it. And that is, I preempt my reload. So I preempted my reload, ended up pulling the trigger before I was reloaded, which meant that I missed the shot. And then meant we took the hit from the TNH VZ51 when I had to pull around to try and take the shot again. Fortunately, the SU-122-54 couldn't quite get the shot into us as he was coming over the ridgeline, and we ended up shutting him down, which is kind of fortunate. He was what I was always wary about, as well as the Waffle Panzer IV, because he could just yellow in and shoot us and kill us, which is not good. But now there is just the VZ51 in front of us. We get a nice shot into his side armour there, and I'm just thinking, wait, why haven't I just tried to shoot this Inferno? Looking at where his icon was, it was like, that guy's just beyond the doorway. I'm just going to shoot through the door and see if we hit him. And we do manage to get to shut him down. I finished with 4 kills, 6.3k damage, 474 assistance, bit of blocked, ace tanker, Confederate, high caliber, 1831 base XP. Really nice game for the M46 Patton. The Patton is, even after the nerf, the M46 Patton is still an absolutely solid tier 9 medium tank. The other day, it took a second off its reload, and it still reloads pretty damn quickly for a 390 Alpha gun. It's still, I think, the second best. Don't quote me on that. I think it's the second best tier 9 medium tank in terms of its 390 Alpha and its reload. Still great. And it's still a solid tank. In terms of this whole line is such a fun medium tank line to play. It's solid. It's a fairly decent line for learning how to play all types of medium tanks, because you go from the very stealthy, hard-hitting guns of the lower tiers, like the T20, for example, to starting to get more mobile and then have more armor and have more durability, to the point where you get to the M48a5 Patton and you have mobility that's not the best, because this tank does have 45 km/h top speed, so it is a little bit slow compared to what you're probably going to be used to, and it is definitely a limitation of the tank. But its gun is incredible. It's pretty damn accurate. It's fantastic at shooting at the move. Always has been fantastic at shooting on the move. 6.0 just made it even better, and it doesn't miss shots on the move as often, or that much at all, really. It's got great pen on the rounds, 268 on the APCR, and 340 on the heat. It's got 420 view range, which is fantastic. It means you can spot everything known to man. It's really, really solid. It's just a solid all-round medium tank. The only thing it truly lacks is top speed. Now, in terms of equipment on the M48a5 Patton, I run rammer, vents, and optics. Now, there's lots of different things you could run on the M48 Patton, to be perfectly honest. You can run rammer, vert stabs, and optics if you wanted to, or rammer, vert stabs, and vents. Because with vents and 420 meters view range and having the crew with situational awareness, born leader and that, you can still get your view range up to like just below 500. It's probably a little bit overkill to have vents and optics, but that's just me. I like to have that mad view range. You could run vert stabs to make the gun absolutely insanely accurate, have it more like the M60 gun where it is just fantastic. Or you could drop the vert stabs and have traction system. Have the traction system to get yourself up to 49 kilometers an hour, because you get 4 kilometers an hour top speed extra out of the traction system on this tank. Or you could run a camo net and make the camo a little bit better, but to be honest, this tank doesn't have much camo, so it's probably not the wisest idea in the world. There's lots of different options you could run. I mean, if you really wanted to go overkill on the mobility because you don't really like, you could run traction system and powertrain and get a 51 kilometer an hour top speed and be extremely mobile. Now, I don't run the traction system because the turret on this tank doesn't traverse very quickly, and it can be a little bit of a limitation because sometimes the turret will traverse slower than the tracks. So when you turn the tracks a little bit, your turret shoots off with it. That's why I run rapid aim, to make sure that the turret traverse keeps up with the hull traverse. If you run rapid aim traction system, again, the hull traverse, still outdoes the turret if you run the traction system. So that's why I don't run it, because it frustrates me a little bit, and I prefer to just make my tank absolutely insane with its view range, gun handling, DPM, and everything generally. But it's down to you preference-wise. If you feel the tank is just too slow, definitely put traction system on it. You'll get up to 49 kilometers an hour, and you could run that if you wanted to, definitely. So in this game, we're on Thankyou Ridge. We're up to 3.5k damage so far. And unfortunately, we bounced on the top of the M103 there. We actually hit his really angled upper roof deck there instead of hitting the cupola. We get a shot into the drive wheel of the E4, which tracks him in place and stops him from coming over and blapping us. Fortunately, we're just safe from the FV4005 by this rock. I can't quite see him, which is fine. So I decided, you know what, I'm not going to deal with that. We're going to swivel around and we're going to maneuver off over to this way. Hopefully get up on this ridgeline over here. We're seeing at D4, and we're probably, or this ridgeline here even, we're probably going to be able to spot the FV4005, which just happens because the FV4005 has no camo, and we have insane view range. Now obviously we can only spot up to 445 meters because that's the cap, but every single meter of view range over that will just destroy people's camos, and if that thing has no camo anyway, it means we're also just going to spot it every time. As soon as he comes into my view range, he's just going to get spotted. Fortunately enough, the FV4005 is gone. He's dead, which means I can poke over here and try and help this Leopard against the C4 as much as possible. Try and keep this guy's health going. Unfortunately enough, the Leopard will manage to shut down the E4 and get rid of that guy. We're up to 5k damage with 1200 assistance, and now the rest of their team is all either on the hill at B3, if there is anyone still over there, or mostly over here pushing the A line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and kite round and get some shots into the people like this VK. We get a nice shot into the side of him just as he gets unspotted. This is where it could be kind of handy to have someone try and spot it, but unfortunately they can't quite see them. So I'm going to try and flank round to a position where I can get shots into the rear of them as they're on this ridge line that I'm shooting this VK on right now, but I might be able to spot them or try and spot anyone that's camping down this A line. And right now, as you're seeing, it's working. We're getting some nice shots into this VK. Now, we switched to heat there because I wanted to guarantee finishing him off, going through his lower plate or the side of his turret if he showed it to me. But unfortunately, he died. And then we had to fire heat at the side of the the WZ-11114. And unfortunately, that's where heat rounds suck. Because if we had APCR there, we would have penned and tracked that WZ-11114. But because it was a heat round, it just got absorbed by the spaced armor of his tracks. And that just meant that we couldn't do anything to him. And he managed to get away. But now we've got, again, another position that's pretty good for farming him. We get another shot into him as he's pulling back. But unfortunately, he gets unspotted again, and it's like, that's really awkward. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull forward here, and we're going to see if we can get the spot on him. But as we pull forward, we spot the Gorilla 15, and it's like, oh, okay. I pull forward to get a shot into his drive wheel and track him in place, which we do. And unfortunately, I make a mistake here. I drive round the wrong side of this bunker. I should have driven around the left-hand side. I was a little bit cautious of the fact that the WZ-11114 was probably still down that D line. And I didn't want to get shot by him over peaking to shoot the Gorilla. But it was definitely a mistake to pull out in front of the Gorilla there, who spanked a heat round straight through the front of my turret, which I could probably bounce the Gorilla just about on my turret front with AP, but he was firing heat, so he absolutely destroyed my turret. And unfortunately, that means we've not got many hit points left. We're up to 8.1k damage though, which is fantastic, 2.2k assistance, and they're in the cap. So I'm trying to pull into a position where I can try and get, well, into the area where I can shoot the cap and reset, because they've got 2 in there now, and we need to reset. So I got to myself to this ridgeline where I can be hulled down. I've got this rock for cover. We reset the cap by shooting the Waffle E100 in the side there. We're just aiming for the shot, a really slither of a shot into his turret, but unfortunately we just miss it. And I'm just going to pull forward. I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to try and get into the dip to try and get another shot into the Waffle Panther 4. But unfortunately, there's a chisel down the JK. I was not expecting that, and he shuts us down. But fortunately enough, the team carries us through to the victory. Finished with 1 kill, 8.4k damage, 2.2k assist. The Ace Tanker, High Caliber, the Confederate, 1780 base XP. Really nice game for the M48 Patton, 10.6k combined. M48 Patton is an absolutely solid tier 10. It's a lot of fun. It's well worth going for. And what a line to play the M48a5 Patton line is. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.